This is The Clash, where the real world clashes with a true Christian worldview. Join former professional wrestler Chris Whaley, known as the Masked Saint, who is an author, pastor, and teacher that brings his wrestling skills into the squared circle and tackles real-life issues. Along with Jeff Dixon, best-selling author, internationally known teacher, leader, and pastor who is not afraid to tackle the tough issues of the world we live in. Together they form a tag team of wisdom in The Clash.
Hi, and welcome to The Clash, where we take a Christian worldview and allow it to clash into the culture of the day. And when it's all said and done, if it goes well, hopefully you'll walk away inspired, maybe encouraged, and maybe with a few thoughts that might help you kind of get to the day. I'm Jeff Dixon. I am joined here by the one and only Masked Saint, Chris Whaley. And I am thrilled because you're getting ready to introduce our guest. And I'm in awe to be in the presence of the top two celebrities on Abundant TV.
Wow.
How about that?
What an introduction. I don't know if I can top that.
Well, you have to introduce Jody, so you got to do better than that.
It's amazing how God works. You know, I'll never forget getting the phone call about the possibility of doing a new show on Abundant TV, and that actually materializing, into The Clash. And by the way, the only way I could do this is if I had Jeff Dixon, because if it was just me, it would be a terrible show.
Now,
But
Jody, at this point, I would say, aren't you glad that we invited you to sit in here on our Love Fest as we just kind of compliment each other back and forth?
I haven't introduced him yet.
He hasn't been introduced yet, and here we are talking about ourselves. I just know.
But anyway,
Yeah.
this came about, and then I put him in touch with my good friend that has Wrestling for Christ ministry, and that became a reality. And then the guy who does the announcing for Wrestling for Christ is our guest today. And then from that, it kind of spiraled into another show, which is the one that comes on right before The Clash, and that's Falls Count Anywhere. And so we have today a guy with a great voice. I don't ever want to listen to my voice. When I do an interview, I don't watch it because I just don't like listening to my voice. I'm nasally and I got a southern accent. But this guy, he has the voice. And that is the one and only Jody Powell. Jody,
welcome.
It is a great honor to have you on The Clash with us, and always appreciate your giving us a push at the end of Falls Count Anywhere. And we're just thrilled to have you today. So thank you for being on The Clash.
Jeff, Chris, thank you so much for having me on The Clash. This is a thrill for me. What a wonderful opportunity to get to know you guys. And I love your show. I love being able to benefit from your show, having our Falls Count Anywhere precede The Clash. And it's just a wonderful opportunity to meet you guys. Thank you so much for having me on.
Yeah, go ahead.
Gosh, it took us forever to get that introduction out. I mean, that's probably one of our longest introductions ever. So, Jody, I appreciate you being patient with that. Tell our folks, tell our audience a little bit about yourself. I mean, how in the world did you end up being on not just your show, but also in being the voice of Wrestling for Christ? I mean, how does all that come about?
Simple answer is God. It really is. And I know that's a little cliche. A lot of people will say things like that, but I have to go back, guys, till like when I was 5 years old. My grandmother introduced me to pro wrestling, and that was our bond. It was our connection. And she always, she was the typical old lady wrestling fan that would cheer the good guys and boo the bad guys. And that made me pull for the bad guys just to be a little contrarian with her. And so, it's how I got to be a fan of Greg Valentine and the Horsemen and Roddy Piper, and she just couldn't stand it. And so it began there, and really it went on for my entire life. I couldn't stop watching wrestling. And I thought for the longest time, this was just this just useless knowledge. I'll never be able to use any of this for any value, but it's entertainment. So it was great. About a year ago, I started a podcast and I interviewed one of our mutual friends, Mark Smith, former professional wrestler. And Mark and I just kind of hit it off. And he calls me up and a few weeks later and he says, "Hey, I've met this great promoter. He's got an organization right near you. It's a Christian-based wrestling organization." And he starts telling me all of these things about Abundant TV and about the organization. And I'm thinking, well, that's great, Mark. What does this have to do with me? And he said, "Oh, I want you to commentate it." And I mean, my eyes just lit up. Please, yes, sir. Thank you very much. I'll be glad to do that. And I met our good friend Richie Scruggs, and Richie and I hit it off and went to a show, and I was hooked. From that point forward, I was just intimately involved with Wrestling for Christ. I love the mission that they have, the heart that they have for spreading the gospel, especially to the people of the Philippines, but also here at home. And it's just turned out to be an incredible blessing to be a part of such a wonderful Christian organization.
Yeah.
Well, tell us. I mean, peel back kind of give us a little bit behind the scenes. So how does the Wrestling for Christ show work as far as you interfacing with it? Are you traveling with them? Do you get the tapes afterwards? I mean, how's that look?
Yeah, I absolutely will be there every time the doors are open if I possibly can. And so we show up on an event night. We have a wonderful audiovisual person, Drew Fulton, who does a fantastic job with cameras and sound and music and mics, all the stuff that I can't do. And he hands me a mic and he turns it on, and that's where I can take it. All the behind the scenes stuff, Drew is just fantastic with. And we record every show, we record every match, we do a lot of footage backstage, and it's just wonderful to be able to kind of see the business from behind the curtain. I've been a fan for so long and can really understand the world of professional wrestling, the storytelling, the psychology behind it from a fan's perspective, but seeing it behind the curtain, seeing everything that goes into putting a card together and making these matches and making things just go off and timing, telling the story in the ring, making sure the music hits at the right time. All of those things are fascinating. And these guys are wonderful, wonderful workers. They're just great professional wrestlers. They're great athletes. And most importantly for me, I found a great group of Christian men that I can surround myself with and share life together with.
Yeah. I've had the great opportunity to be at a couple of those events and the opportunity to share the gospel from the ring, which is always a thrill when I get to do that. And then the opportunity to see the response to the invitation at those shows. I mean, I know how it was with the ones that I was there, and there's always people who accept Christ at those shows. So
always.
It's a great evangelistic tool. You think you're going there for wrestling, and you go for the great wrestling, but you also get to hear the gospel and have an opportunity to respond to the gospel. So that's a lot different than any other wrestling organizations that you see. And so I appreciate that. And I love watching it. And man, I think you do an outstanding job. I guess the hardest part for me in professional wrestling was the microphone. And I can't tell you how many times I froze up with the microphone, but I don't think you ever freeze up. You always do a great job, and
thank you.
And those guys always do a great job too. Are you enjoying the work there?
I love the work there, and I've had a passion for speaking and speaking in front of people for a while now, and this combines passions of wrestling and speaking and sharing the gospel. And you're right. It's an amazing feeling, first of all, just to be standing in a wrestling ring, to be able to do that. And then to be able to stand in a wrestling ring and share the gospel. I was able to share one night and was talking specifically about a man's responsibility in terms of continuing to pursue his wife. And after I was done, a gentleman came up to me and said, "Listen, I want to tell you something. I just come from the hospital. My wife has stage 4 cancer. I needed a break, and I saw a flyer for this show, and I thought, great, this is going to be an opportunity for me to just get my mind off of things and come enjoy this. And then I heard you speak, and I heard you speak about your wife, and I could feel God talking to me. And if I never have another experience like that again, guys, that one right there, it's worth all of the work. It's worth all of the worry and the long nights of putting shows together. That one moment, it's just worth it. I've had the opportunity to bounce around in the ring, take a few bumps, and I got to tell you, here's the thing I love to tell people about wrestling, and so many people will use the word fake, and it's not fake. I've put that ring together with these guys 100 times. It's steel, it's wood, it's metal. There's nothing fake about that.
Yeah.
And so I had the opportunity to train a little bit with our champion, who's our world champion now, Shane Austin, and Shane and I were in the ring, and he's showing me how to bump, and he's hip tossing me. I'm taking a few clotheslines. I'm feeling really good, Chris. I'm hitting my bumps good, and I'm getting up. I'm like, yeah, that feels good. I woke up the next morning, and I wanted to know what license plate was on that Mack truck that ran over me. And my wife, bless her heart, I love her to death, but my wife looked at me and she said, "Don't even say a word. Don't even say a word. That's your fault."
Oh, good. Go ahead, Jeff.
Well, we're going to go to a break here in just a minute. But before we do, before we kind of move away from Wrestling for Christ, tell us how busy does that keep you? How many shows a year? Is that every weekend, every other weekend? What's the schedule like for you?
We're averaging about 2 shows a month, live shows. And then we do interspersed with that, we do church shows as well. We'll go to churches, we'll go to fairs, we'll go to events. We've booked a lot of fairs this year. And so, summer and fall is going to be really busy for us. We're going to have the opportunity to go to different fairs, different churches. In fact, in a few weeks, we're going down to Ringgold, Georgia for a wonderful youth event that's held down there at a church. And we're excited about that. We're coming your way in April. We're going to Richie's Church in June. We've got other fairs and other churches. The Gaffney Peach Festival here in South Carolina is a great event we did last year that we're going to get to do again this year. And so we have a minimum of 2 shows per month, but we usually we'll sprinkle in some other shows as well. So it stays very busy, and I'm blessed to have a wonderful wife that is understanding and enjoys that. I found a passion. She's getting involved with it as well, and she loves it. And so it's just been a lot of fun.
Well, great. Hey, we're going to take a break, Jody, and can't wait to get right back and talk some more about what's going on in your life. So we'll come back right after this break.
Chris, I was just thinking while we take a break here in the show, wouldn't it be nice if you could go somewhere and shop and get high quality merchandise that would have a lasting impact? Wouldn't that be good?
I think that would be absolutely awesome.
Well, I've got a suggestion for you, because what is your favorite saying?
Don't tap out.
Look at that. How about a Don't
Holy
Tap Out
smokes,
t-shirt? And
don't
look at the
tap
logo
out.
on the back.
What's on the back? The Clash.
The Clash. That's one of my favorite shows.
It's on my top list too.
And people could go and buy this from our store. Now you say, how do you get to the store? Well, right now there's a QR code on the screen. If they use that QR code, they can go and they can buy. Name something. We'll see if they can buy it there. What do you want? What to buy?
Probably. I want to get a long sleeve hoodie.
You know what? You can get a long sleeve hoodie there.
Really?
Yeah, and you know what else? If you had a baby tomorrow, you could get Clash baby gear at that same store. Yep, you can get that. All of it's available at the Clash store. So if you haven't been to the Clash store, you're one of the few people in America that hasn't been there yet.
Yeah.
And so check it out. Buy our stuff. It makes us money. It makes us happy.
Yeah.
Okay. Go to the Clash store.
Hey, I'm Chris Whaley. I went from professional wrestling for 10 years, wrestling some of the biggest names in the business, 4 world champions. And I left the wrestling world to become a pastor. And I wrote a book about that transition because when I became a pastor, I found out that there were some people being abused and people being mistreated. And I ended up dealing with some people more as a professional wrestler than I did as a pastor. And I wrote a book about that transition called The Masked Saint. And it's available along with my other book, which is Harold's Heavenly Christmas. If you like Christmas stories, you're going to love this one. And one day it's going to be a movie. And then my last book is Mr. President. Has two lives, a comedian and the world heavyweight wrestling champion. And it is a great read.
Welcome back. Hopefully you enjoyed your break, but hopefully it was just long enough to leave you wanting more. And well, this is it. This is the more part. We're with Jody. We're continuing our conversation. Jody, let's we were talking in the first segment about Wrestling for Christ. Let's talk about your show though, because again, if someone has just tuned in to see this show, they have missed a fantastic show just before this. Tell us about the show, what you're doing, how it came about, what it looks like.
Sure. Yeah. Falls Count Anywhere, Monday nights at 7, right before the Clash. And it's myself and my good friend, the mad scientist, Mike Buchanan. And we love to talk about wrestling. We're just wrestling fans at heart. We give a good segment talking about the current events in the WWE. We talk about what's going on at Wrestling for Christ. And then my favorite part of the show is the final segment of the show we do. It's called Finding Tomorrow. And that's really the reason for this show, the reason I wanted to start this show. I have a strong passion and I feel a very strong calling for men's mental health. And so we want to identify ways that we can help any individual, but particularly men who are struggling just to find tomorrow. They feel like, they're at their wit's end. They're at their the last strand of the rope. And we want to tie some biblical truths to what's going on in our society today, what men face, what we struggle with. I'm a strong proponent of just being very vocal. This suffering and silence that we see in men is crippling. And we isolate ourselves. And so any spot we can give opportunity for men to feel safe to talk about things that they're really struggling with, and we can pour into them from a Christian perspective. That's what we want to do. And it's just a great way to, again, pull wrestling and the Word of God together and really try to make a change in someone's life.
Wow. Well, for those of you who are listening to our show that are involved in churches, involved in community groups, if you're looking for a great speaker for your event, you're looking at one of the best you could get in Jody Powell. And I know you're doing a lot more of that now, of going and sharing message, and you've got the background in speaking, you got the background in professional wrestling and announcing and doing all of that, and it just makes for a great opportunity to have somebody like that come and speak to your event. You want to say anything about that?
Well, first, thank you so much, Chris. I love to speak. I love to be in front of people, and it really started with hearing who's now become just a really good friend of mine. It was a professional speaker. His name's Steve Gilliland. And Steve is just a funny guy. He tells inspirational stories. He motivates. And I just saw the impact that he had on an audience. I said, I want to do that. I want to have that kind of impact on someone's life. I want to be able to share my experiences, share my failures, and let people learn from them. And so I asked him, what do I need to do in order to just get over, first of all, my fear of public speaking, and then become a really good speaker? And he said, there's no magic to it. You have to speak. You just have to speak over and over and over again. And so he pointed me to Toastmasters International, which is a great club for public speaking. Was able to join there, kind of got past those nerves, learned how to use the nerves and turn it into energy, and take that energy, and it just propels you to become a dynamic speaker that way. And then I started thinking about, well, what's my message? What do I want to talk about? And so from a business perspective, I do a lot of things on personal brand and how to be an inspirational leader, and how to have civility in conversations at work. And then I transferred that over, especially when I started working with Richie and Wrestling for Christ. I wanted to think about, what can I do from a biblical perspective? And some of my keynotes include things like the greatest story you've never heard. And it's taking a look at the resurrection and one very key piece of the resurrection that we tend to gloss over. And that is that the stone was rolled away. Well, why was the stone rolled away? Well, Jesus didn't need the stone rolled away to get out. It was rolled away so that we could see in. And so I take that perspective and try to mold that into, again, what's happening in the world today, what's happening in people's lives, and try to provide a little Christian perspective from that. And hopefully folks can be motivated from it and can take something that I say, that God gives me to say, and utilize it to better their lives.
Oh, that's awesome. Go ahead.
Now, I love, I mean, again, I love what you're passionate about. I'm excited that you're using the giftedness that God has given you. And again, one of the things I want to go back before we get away from the Toastmasters idea, people don't understand that what you do takes work. I mean, it is a craft. It's an art, just like any other artist. And I mean, and again, coming from a preaching background, of course, when we're on TV and things like that. But I don't think people always appreciate the fact that it's just not like throw up a barn and put on a show. There really is some work involved in this thing. And I appreciate so much your willingness to hone in on that craft, because it shows the results are there. And you're communicating, and I think you're honoring God by bringing your best to it and putting that effort in. And so, I mean, kudos. I'm excited. I'm excited for you. I'm excited to hear what you're doing. And again, it comes across. It really does.
Well, thank you, Jeff. I really appreciate that. And like I said in the beginning, the answer to all of this is just God. God did this, and I really just try to put that in the forefront and keep that vision right in front of me. I don't want to get it lost that I had anything to do with this. And yes, there's a lot of work that goes into it, but God gives me the passion. God gave me the talent. God gave me the ability. All I'm doing is trying to use it in a way that would just glorify Him.
Yeah,
That's awesome. Hey, tell us how Jody Powell came to know the Lord. I mean, I don't know how old you are. I don't know if you want to tell us how old you are, but did that opportunity to respond to Christ's invitation, did that take place as a child, a teenager, adult, whatever? Give us the word on that.
I'm very fortunate to have wonderful Christian parents and was always raised in church. I came to know the Lord early. I was 10 years old, and I remember it very vividly, sitting in the front row, because if I was going to be allowed to sit with my friends, I had to sit in the front row. Couldn't sit in the back. The preacher's going to keep an eye on me.
Yeah.
But I remember the day very well, and I remember just the feeling of being called. And I couldn't explain it as a child. I don't know that I can even explain it as an adult, but I felt this calling to give my life to the Lord. And I didn't fully understand what that meant, but I certainly knew that I needed to do it. And so I did that at 10 years old. And really throughout my life, of course, I've had ups and downs. I've grown apart from the Lord. I've come back to the Lord at certain stages in life. But just in the back of my mind, I've always knew the importance of having a relationship with Jesus Christ and the importance of sharing that with other people. And those are the two things that I've always clung to. No matter what I've done or where I've gone in my career, those are two things that kind of kept me grounded. And it's really important now because, it's a little glamorous to say, hey, I have a TV show. I'm on 2 TV shows. You got to stay grounded in that and really keeping myself humble and remembering that I'm not doing this for Jody Powell. I'm not advancing the name of Jody Powell. I'm trying to spread the word of God.
Yeah, great.
Yeah, when you use that word called, I mean, that lights a fire in me, because the phrase that I always use to talk about being called is your voice activated by God.
Yes.
Right. And so you're obedient and you're following that call. And so, and for me, it's fun. It's fun to watch you. It's fun to hear you. Again, Chris roped me into this because I'm a wrestling geek as much as anything else, and he knows that. He took advantage of me and put me in an arm bar and made me do it. But at the end of the day, it's been so much fun though to find that there really is a whole subculture out there that appreciates the art of wrestling, the storytelling of wrestling, And I think what people miss sometimes, because I think it's real easy when you're watching WWE and you're watching, the big network show, that, behind the scenes, I mean, these are real people. And these are people, and you meet them. I love being backstage at a wrestling show, getting to know folks, because, again, they are real, with real struggles, but also they become good friends. And it's a great opportunity to do the ministry that God has called you to. Back to the call. You've been voice activated to work in a world that desperately needs you. And so, I want to just commend you for that and for being faithful in that. I mean, that speaks volumes to you and your character and just who you are as a man.
Well, wow. Thank you, Jeff. I really appreciate that. I couldn't take credit for any of that. It's the people that I've surrounded myself with. It's my wonderful wife, who has been such a support for me for nearly 29 years. It's wonderful people like Richie and some of these guys that, I so look forward to going to the Wrestling for Christ events, because I get to see all of these wonderful men and shake their hands and hug their necks and ask them how they're doing and ask them about those prayer requests that they've been given to me and I've had the opportunity to pray for them with. And then we get to see what happens in the show, because we never know who's going to be there. We never know who's going to need to hear it. We never know what the message is going to be when we bring in guest speakers. And so it's a thrill for me not only to see wrestling, but to hear these guests come and these guest preachers speak the word and to look out over the audience and see those light bulbs start to go off. That's exhilarating. It's thrilling.
Are you enjoying getting to meet some of the people? I know you recently had Jamie, who is one of the producers for WWE, and I think you got Teddy Long coming.
Teddy Long's coming in April. Again, that's the thrill for me. That's the child in me. That's as you know, in the business, I'm marking out over it. I really am. I got to meet the Barbarian. I got to meet Bill Eadie, who is, of course, in Demolition, and to me will always be the Masked Superstar. I've had the opportunity to meet Jamie Noble, who was just fantastic and gracious with his time. Teddy Long is coming up, and so. That's of course getting to meet the Masked Saint, Chris Whaley, even if it is just virtual.
There you go.
I can't wait to meet you in person, brother. I really can't. And get a picture, hug your neck, and thank you for what you do.
Yeah, you'll be underwhelmed.
Oh, no, you won't. You'll be in awe. You'll be in awe.
Well, Joe, Jeff, it's about time to close it up. And
it is.
Yeah.
We and I hate to say goodbye now. And so really. This, for anybody that's watching this on a Monday night, this has been like the Jody Powell hour, right? I mean, we've got a whole hour now where this is just like nonstop, wall to wall.
Well, hopefully Abundant TV won't shut down after this.
Yeah, hopefully we're all still intact come next week. Jody, thank you so much for being with us. Look forward to seeing you down the road here, and keep doing what you're doing. You're having a huge impact, and man, we love you. We love what you're doing. And we're glad to be kind of partners in this thing with you. So keep it up.
Yep.
Thank you both so much.
Yeah. Tell us your email address, Jody.
Absolutely. You can reach me at Falls Count Anywhere 323. And that 323 is for Romans 3:23. And of course, the verse is with that. It really ties into the whole purpose of our show. And that is, of course, that we all fall short of the glory of God. And so Falls County Anywhere 323 at gmail.com. Reach out to us. If you're interested in having Wrestling for Christ come to an event near you, please reach out, contact me. We'll be glad to do that.
All right. Well, I hope you've enjoyed hearing about Jody's life, about the work that God has him doing with Wrestling for Christ, and you get in touch with him, have him speak, or have Wrestling for Christ in your area, and you won't regret that. And remember, don't tap out.